Hey everyone, it's about 6 a.m. on a Wednesday and I just finished a fairly weird little German film called Babylon. I don't want to try to pronounce the German title because it's long and weird. It was directed by a guy named Ralph Huettner, or Huettner, I don't know, again German, and it was made in 1992. The reason I'm reviewing this film now, like immediately after I watched it, is because it's sort of, I'm not really sure what I thought about it yet. The plot is actually very similar to an episode of Fringe, which is weird because I don't really watch Fringe. I watched the first 2 or 3 episodes of it, and it was one of those episodes. I think in some ways, having seen that hurt this film a little bit for me, even though that was made after this, and I have a feeling that the similarities between these two aren't just coincidental. Anyway, I think it took some of the shock and fun out of the plot for me and some of the originality, because it is a really fairly original idea, I think. I still had a lot of fun with it. I think I would have had a lot, or at least a little bit more fun if I hadn't already seen the plot played out, albeit in a very inferior form. Anyway, the plot in this film, this pregnant woman with intense stomach pain is admitted to a hospital, and the night nurse watching her witnesses her pregnant stomach explode. And, you know, no big deal, whatever, that happens all the time. So the next night she goes out and she has a one-night stand with this sleazy con man slash door-to-door salesman named Lothar. Yeah, Lothar. So I guess she's not good at picking up on name cues here. Turns out, go figure, Lothar is the guy who impregnated the woman whose stomach exploded, and it also turns out that during that one night stand their condom broke and Maria is now impregnated as well, and so is one of her friends. So you can see where this is going. The pregnancies start to develop rapidly, great deal of pain, and it gets messy and gory, and there's lots of sex and violence, and it's just cool. What I really liked about this film is the way it's shot, and particularly its use of color. They sort of bookend the film with these great bits of color and experimental filmmaking, which are just fascinating, and it works really well because it works with the structure of the story, and it works in a sort of David Lynch, Mulholland Drive, Lost Highway sort of way, albeit a bit more straightforward. It's not quite as twisted or tangled or puzzle-like as those films, but the way they use color sort of works to cue you into what is actually going on in the film, because it's not as straightforward as it appears. And that's also kind of what I didn't like about the film. Initially anyway. I'm starting to come around to it. And I don't want to spoil the ending, but about 10 minutes from the ending, just weird shit starts to happen. A lot of weird shit. And it's cool, and I dug it, and then they got around to the twist. And I'm not really one for twist endings, particularly ones that feel kind of cheap. And initially this felt kind of cheap. It was sort of a Wizard of Oz twist ending, and from there then it took it a step further and had this sort of fourth wall breaking American Psycho-esque monologue at the very end, which I think saved the film a bit for me, a little bit too, and kind of made it more than just a cheap twist. And it turns out, I don't really think it was a cheap twist. Again, going back to Mulholland Drive, it was more that sort of thing where, you know, it's actually, you thought it was this one thing, but it's something different, and that actually makes the film better rather than worse, and you still had the whole fun ride of getting there, even if you don't like the end. So overall, think I actually liked the film a lot, and I'd be willing to watch it again, and I'd be willing to recommend it to people. I think it wasn't the best film ever, and in terms of films that I could relate it to, because I don't think I can completely relate it to a David Lynch film. I think it's sort of like a David Lynch film mixed with another favorite horror film of mine called Baby Blood, and I don't think it's quite as good as either Baby Blood or a David Lynch film, but it's still good on its own, and it works well. So I'll go ahead and give it a 4 out of 5, and definite recommend. And thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.